Hey guys, it's your girl Dev, and today we're going to talk about the second part of the fixed MGE slash rigged MGE, however you want to call it, and how it went the first rendition that we did for the fixed MGE. We are now in our second cycle of the fixed MGE, and now we'll talk about some of the stuff the mistakes that we made previously and how we're going to improve that this week, and discuss a little bit about that and kind of go over some things that we did and things that we learned from. I hope you guys enjoy it because it's a lot of micromanagement, and sometimes it's a little much for kingdoms, but if you want a very successful kingdom, you do need to do these things, especially if you want to take it on. It's for the benefit of everybody to do a fixed MGE a couple of times just to get the commanders, but we'll talk about that again later. Stay tuned to watch, so don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, and sit back and enjoy the ride. Okay, now let's deep down and talk about the mistakes that we made the last fixed MGE we had. Now, there wasn't as many as I thought. The feedback was pretty standard. Some of the basic ones that we heard back from the kingdom were the people that were top 15, going to be top 15 again, potentially. We answered because of the fact that we don't really know what other commanders are coming up and what cycle they will come up in. We kind of took the standard cycle. It looks like it was leadership, calves, infantry, archers, and then back to leadership. So we're not really sure, but taking a good guess at this time in May of 2021, that's kind of what we're going with. Now, with that being said, the concern was to see the same people on the board. I let them know that they're not going to say the same people on the board only because the people that were on the board have archer focuses, or they wanted that cav commander, which is interesting that they threw that in there with archers. But we wanted to make sure that they knew that the people won't be on there for the next couple MGEs because of the fact that they focused only on archers. Now, we made a discussion afterwards, and we're like, well, what happens if we have an MGE where not very many people apply to it? In the situation that we are now, where we have Montezuma, Wu Zetian, and Theodora. Theodora is a great garrison commander, and so is Wu Zetian, but Theodora is more used in Season of Conquest, and Wu will be used in Season 3, Light and Darkness. You can't use her in Season 2, she's a reward. But with that being said, okay, now that we know that we have access to these commanders, we need to make sure they get implemented correctly. Well, not a lot of people want them because most people in my kingdom that need her have her. So we don't really need her that much. So what we did was we allowed this MGE specifically to be open. Kind of. But with some rules. We'll open the mail and I'll discuss a little bit further. Okay, so this is the mail that I sent out. Okay, as you can see, Extan is the current king, and we went over this multiple times and figured out the best scenario that works for us. Okay, so right there it says, if you competed in the Archers MGE, you cannot reach the top 15 this MGE. That kept the people that were on the board last MGE, because it's open, we only rigged 5 spots. So it's kind of open. So we wanted to make sure the people that weren't on the Archer MGE or who are on the Archer MGE were not on this one this week for leadership. And that's what we did. Now, going forward, after this week, if you are on a top 5 or top 15 list, you cannot compete for the next 2 MGEs. Plain out, you can't compete. Because now we're going to get in the highly competitive MGEs, which are the cabs and the infantry. Archers are debatable, still really good meta, and then also we have the leadership commanders for the garrison. A good debatable whether they're like highly competitive. They're not really super competitive, but that's what we made these statements for, to kind of encourage people to not push in the MGEs that we can give to players that may never get an unlock for one of these commanders. Now, we made the comment there that we don't plan on doing the fixed MGEs that often because we want to be able to give these commanders to people that don't normally get them. And the reason why we fix MGEs, is to make sure the commanders go to the people that can expertise them right when we need to fight with them. That's why they're selected. Most of them are selected. Some of them are selected based on other attributes as well, but that's the primary reason we want the top spots to go to. Now, then it comes down to about the placement and the mighty governor, that you're reminding them again about the 6th to 15th spot is competitive for anybody who wants to compete, as long as you met the prerequisites from the following week. You weren't competing last week, you can compete this week. But if you compete this week, you can't compete for the next 2 MGEs. So keep that in mind, right? So you have to remember the cycle. That way it's just better overall to have that clear definition there. And then we made the comment there about like the 2 million points, the 1 million, 10 million. All that stuff is important because they need to know what points per day that they can achieve. Last MGE that we did, if you see the video at the top, you'll be able to see that, is we did 16 million points over the first few days. I had to make sure that the people that were competing could meet the minimum requirement, which was 10 million points. So in the survey that I sent out a couple of days before the MGE, I put that comment in there. Can you reach 10 million points? If you can't reach 10 million points, you can't secure yourself a spot. You have to do at least 10. Well, 10 is the minimum, basic minimum that we want you to reach. I asked everybody to push to 15 because we wanted to make sure they could get to the points. So 15 million was the points that we stuck with. And that's pretty much in it for that mail. But we wanted to make sure people knew that these other spots were open, and for the heavy competitive people that wanted, like the Zenobias and Leo and Attilas, that they still want Attilas, and the Shana Gupta, that they knew that they couldn't push in this MGE, that they needed to wait to their specific commander. Doing that determination is more beneficial to your kingdom because now you're teaching your members, your governors, to focus on one troop type. Now, in our kingdom, we don't have any mega whales. And what do I call a mega whale? If you know my channel, you know what I'm talking about, right? Mega whales are the people who just spend. Okay? I don't do that. There's a lot of people I know that don't do that. Here, gold chest 1 week. Okay, 2 gold chests. And that's it. Cool. No problem. But if you're dropping goldies every day, come on. That's a lot of money a day, right? So thinking of it like that, we don't have any people like that in our kingdom that spends that much. I don't mind that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But if you do, you may have to tweak this fixed MGE to suit that. But it's always good to prioritize the fixed MGEs at least once. I mean, if you did it on like the second cycle, that's fine too. But it's always good to understand what your kingdom dynamic is and how does that play into a fixed MGE role. A lot of studying and a lot of understanding and a lot of communication is key to making sure a fixed MGE goes well in your kingdom. If you don't have a lot of enforcement, you're going to have rogue players. If you have a lot of people in your kingdom that don't like you, you're going to have a lot of rogue players. If you have a lot of miscommunication between each person, and you have to be very specific, because people will find loopholes. And when they find loopholes, now they have a way around of what you said. So you have to stay true to your word. That is why sending these mails is super important. Discord messages can be modified. Sending kingdom mails is one way to make sure the message gets out to everybody and it's very easily understood. Now, of course, you can copy and paste it and put it in a Discord server so people can translate it as necessary, which is also a fantastic idea. Multiple mails sent out is also a good idea in different languages. Just remember, you can only send one kingdom mail an hour. I didn't know this, but I know it now. If you didn't know that, you know that now as well. Keep all of this stuff in mind. And I know I just threw a crap ton of information at you, but some of the other things that we learned was to listen to the people and making sure that we were clear on our communication. The leadership team were all on the same page. Nobody had any questions or concerns about it. And you made it blunt, like straightforward. Like, don't sugarcoat it and make it stupid for them. So those were some of the mistakes that we kind of made, but we also fixed and adjusted. Some discussions about why we did things a certain way. Now, this MGE was a little bit different than the standard one that we did, as I discussed, and it works. The past few days has been good. Let's go ahead and review. We're on the second day. We're on the third day of this MGE. And as you can see, at the same time we were at before, we're going to look at the rankings and the overall rankings itself. So we have one player over at 42 million pound. He needed to train troops, so we just let him go train some troops. But then you have other these players, I know he's not in the top spot, but they're meeting the maximum requirement every day, which is what we told them to do. When that's okay. Even if you pass somebody in the top spot, as long as you're following what they said, what your kingdom said, they're in the cool. Now, Emperor RoK will be doing a little bit more work to get himself up into the higher spots, and he understands that, and we are fully capable of making sure that he can get to that point. And you kind of want to avoid people pushing on the last 2 days. Why? Because you need to track all of your violators. Every time someone violates the whatever cap you set, that's it. They're done. Send a mail, get them their get resources from them, find them, track them down. But if you have your top 15 competing in the last 2 days, now you can't see your violators. The people that are the ones that you're trying to look out for to keep from taking one of the spots. Yet now you can't see their points because the top 15 are already taking up the top 10 spots. Because you can only see the top 10 spots from that day. That's kind of going to cover it for everything in this MGE. We learned a lot. Definitely communication to your players was important. Making sure everybody's on the same page for the leadership side. And nobody really has any questions. And it worked out well. I think it worked out really great. I can't wait to see how the next MGE goes. It's going to be a little bit different since most likely we're going to have all 15 spots rigged. And that way it's a little bit more secured, and plus it's calves. But we'll see. Maybe it's something else. I think it's going to be calves, but I don't know. Again, hope you enjoyed this video. It's a lot of information I just threw at you, and we're talking about fixed MGEs, and I know it's redundant. I said a lot of this stuff over and over again, but it's really important that you kind of focus on the important skills here as we talk about fixed MGEs. But the reinforcement of the violations that are happening, you need to make sure that you have a solid leadership team that's following you, and you can take this information, you can share it with them, which is good because I want to make sure you guys can get that out there. If you have any additional tips to give to people, please drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for content just like this all the time. I love helping you guys. I do it for you guys, the player base, enjoying this content. I enjoy it making it. So, well, hope you guys enjoy it. And if you do, subscribe, enjoy, listen to me rant about the same topic over and over again. But thank you again. Enjoy your week. So for now, guys, just keep it real.